Okay, this is interesting, but it's probably only going to make sense to me if we're being honest, but still, um, just follow me. So I saw this video, which I thought was really, really, really interesting. So it's the Kenyan twins, and they were like unpacking like this conversation with a girl who was talking about like the Bible, the book of Enoch. And here's the thing, like, I grew up Buddhist, and actually there's another video that I'm gonna put out today about like why I no longer practice like Buddhism. And anyway, so this girl puts out a video and she was trying to explain the Bible and explain basically like why certain Europeans believe that they are descended from nephilims, and like what are nephilims. And actually we're just gonna have this conversation because I just asked ChatGPT and it brought up actually a lot. And for me, a lot of this conversation never made sense to me because, like I said, I did not grow up reading the Bible. I'm not Christian now, and I wasn't Christian like growing up. I did attend church a few times, but it didn't come from this place of like me, I don't know, having like historic roots in biblical figures or people or even ideas. So that's not where I'm coming from. But I think some of you might have similar questions as me. So let's just unpack this together. So I just asked, I was like, what is a Nephilim? And that's what I thought it was called. And then ChatGPT says the term Nephilim does not appear to have a widely recognized meaning in English. However, depending on the context, you may be referring to one of the following possibilities. Nephilim, which is a biblical religious context, you might be referring to the Nephilim, a race of giants or hybrid beings mentioned in the Bible in Genesis 6:1 to 4. They are often described as the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men. And so I was like, okay, what is a Nephilim? And then ChatGPT answers, a Nephilim is the mysterious giant of the Bible. The Nephilim are a group of enigmatic beings mentioned in the Bible, often described as giants or fallen ones. Their origins, nature, and role in biblical history have been widely debated among scholars, theologians, and mythologists. So, where are the Nephilim mentioned in the Bible? The Nephilim appear in two main passages. A, in Genesis 6:1 to 6:4, before the flood. When men began to multiply on the face of the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. They were the mighty men of old, men of renown. The key points. The sons of God took human women as wives. Their offspring were the Nephilim, described as mighty men, men of renown. This event led to divine judgment, or the great flood in Noah's time. So I'm sure you're familiar with Noah's Ark. It's saying that that is what caused that, I believe. And then it's saying in Numbers 13:32 to 13:33, after the flood. The land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. The key points. The Israelite spies saw giants in Canaan, calling them Nephilim. These giants were linked to the Anakim, a race of large people living in Canaan. This passage raises the question, did the Nephilim survive the flood? Who were the sons of God that created the Nephilim? There are three main interpretations of who the sons of God were. The fallen angels. This is the traditional view. This view suggests the sons of God were fallen angels who took human women as wives, producing hybrid offspring or Nephilim, supported by the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text not included in the Bible. Possible connection to Jude 6 and 2 Peter 2.4, which mention angels who sinned and were imprisoned. And this is take B, the line of Seth, or the human view. The sons of God were descendants of Seth, the righteous lineage, and the daughters of men were descendants of Cain, wicked lineage. This interpretation sees the Nephilim as mighty but fully human warriors. The problem, it doesn't explain why their offspring were described as giants or legendary figures. C, the king's theory. The sons of God were ancient rulers or kings who took multiple wives and declared themselves divine. Nephilim were their dynastic warrior offspring, less popular but seen as a rational explanation that avoids supernatural elements. And then there's this third part, were the Nephilim giants? The Hebrew word Nephilim comes from nephal, meaning to fall, or fallen ones. Some believe this refers to fallen angels, while others see it as describing their great physical stature. Evidence supporting the giant theory. Numbers 13:33 suggests that Nephilim were huge, making the Israelites feel like grasshoppers. They're giant races in the Bible. Anakim, the descendants of the Nephilim, Deuteronomy 2:10 to 2:11. Rephaim, giant warriors, Deuteronomy, I don't think I said that right, 3:11, King Og. Goliath, the Philistine giant, 1 Samuel 17. Some scholars argue that giants may not mean physically huge, but rather great warriors or rulers. I'm not really sure. What I can say is there's a lot of iconography, a lot of photography, pictures that have come out kind of describing the time. And it does feel like the giants are large as we know them. They are physically staturous, huge, taller than everyone else. And then the question is like, did the Nephilim survive the flood? Since Genesis 6 places the Nephilim before the flood and Numbers 13 mentions them after the flood, scholars have debated how they reappeared. Nephilim bloodline survived. Some believe Noah's family or their wives carried Nephilim DNA. A second incursion. Fallen angels may have repeated their actions after the flood. Exaggeration by the Israelite spies. Some scholars suggest the spies embellished their report out of fear. The Nephilim in ancient and modern thought. The Book of Enoch and other ancient texts. The Book of Enoch, which is not in the Bible but influential in early Jewish and Christian thought, expands on the Nephilim theory or story. It claims that fallen angels or watchers descended on Mount Hermon, taught humans forbidden knowledge, and fathered the Nephilim. The Nephilim were described as violent, corrupt, and cannibalistic, leading to the flood. Nephilim in modern conspiracy theories. Some believe that Nephilim were extraterrestrial beings or genetic experiments. Others link Nephilim to giant skeleton discoveries, claiming that ancient history has been suppressed. Popular in ancient astronaut theories, like History Channel's Ancient Aliens. Final thoughts. Who were the Nephilim? The Nephilim remain a mystery with no universally accepted explanation. The religious view. Hybrid offspring of fallen angels and humans. Historical view. Mythological warriors, heroes, or kings. Scientific skepticism, likely exaggerated legends or misinterpretations. Regardless of interpretation, the Nephilim story has inspired countless theories, myths, and pop culture adaptations. And then I asked, why do people believe that Europeans descended from Nephilim? So then ChatGPT answered, the idea that Europeans descended from Nephilim is a fringe theory rooted in a mix of biblical interpretation, ancient mythology, and pseudo-history. While there is no scientific or historic evidence to support this claim, here's why some people believe it. Biblical descriptions of Nephilim as mighty and large. In Genesis 6:4, the Nephilim are described as mighty men of old, men of renown. In Numbers 13:33, they are said to be so large that the Israelites looked like grasshoppers in comparison. Some theorists suggest that certain European peoples were taller, stronger, or had distinct features, leading to speculation that they were linked to Nephilim ancestry. Theories about Nephilim surviving the flood. If Nephilim were wiped out in Noah's flood, why do they appear after the flood in Numbers 13? Some claim that the Nephilim survived the flood through Noah's bloodline or a second incursion of fallen angels. This led to speculation that Nephilim bloodlines spread across different parts of the world, including Europe. European mythologies of giants. Many European legends and ancient texts describe races of giants, supernatural beings, or demigods, which some connect to the Nephilim. Norse mythology. Jotun frost giants were powerful semi-divine beings who lived in Jotunheim. Some connect them to the Nephilim, suggesting the Jotun were a post-flood remnant of those ancient beings. Greek mythology. The Titans, like Cronus and Atlas, were powerful giant demigods. The Gigantes, giants, were divine beings born from Gaia and Uranus, known for warring against the gods. Some theorists argue that these stories echo the Nephilim rebellion against God. The Celtic mythology. The Tuatha De Danann were a god-like race with supernatural abilities. The Fomorians were described as giant monstrous warriors who ruled before the Tuatha arrived. Some believe these legends describe pre-flood Nephilim remnants. The British legends. The giant Gog-Magog, a warrior in British folklore, is often linked to biblical giants. Some medieval writers claimed that the early Britons descended from ancient Nephilim-like giants. Theories linking biblical figures to Europeans. Some fringe theorists attempt to trace European royal bloodlines or ancient tribes to Nephilim descent. The sons of Noah theory. Japheth, one of Noah's sons, is traditionally considered the ancestor of Europeans. Some theorists claim that his bloodline carried Nephilim DNA, which was diluted over time. This would suggest that Nephilim genes spread through Japheth's descendants, forming certain European populations. Aryan race theories, occult, and pseudoscience. Nazi ideology and 19th century occult groups promoted the idea of an ancient superior race with divine or non-human ancestry. The Theosophical Society, Helena Blavatsky, claimed Aryans descended from Atlanteans who were believed to be part Nephilim. Ancient alien theories sometimes mix with Nephilim ancestry ideas, suggesting that aliens enhanced early Europeans. Nephilim skeleton hoaxes and giant discoveries. Many fake giant skeleton discoveries have been used as evidence of Nephilim ancestry. There are famous cases. The New York Times from the 1800s to the 1900s reported giant skeletons found in the US. The Smithsonian conspiracy theory claims they destroyed giant skeletons to hide history. Some European archaeologist sites like Stonehenge have been linked to giant builders. Most of these claims have been debunked as hoaxes or misinterpretations. Ancient aliens and Nephilim hypotheses. Shows like Ancient Aliens argue that Nephilim were extraterrestrials who genetically altered early humans. Some claim that Europeans, especially Northern Europeans, were hybrid descendants of these beings. No real evidence supports this, but it remains popular in conspiracy circles. Conclusion: a myth without evidence. The idea that Europeans descended from Nephilim is based on mythology, misinterpreted archaeology, and conspiracy theories. There's no DNA evidence to support the existence of Nephilim or their survival. Legends of giants exist worldwide, just not in Europe. Many claims come from pseudoscience, occult theories, and misinterpretations of the Bible. Still, the mystery of Nephilim continues to inspire speculation, books, and movies. And then I said, tell me more about the Theosophical Society and their claims that Aryans descended from Atlantans and are part Nephilim. So this is the last part of this rant. So Theosophical Society, Aryans, and the Atlantis Nephilim connection. The Theosophical Society, founded in 1875 by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, is a spiritual and occult movement that blends Hinduism, Buddhism, esoteric Christianity, and Western mysticism. One of its most controversial beliefs is that Aryans descended from Atlanteans, who were a powerful semi-divine race. Some interpretations further link these Atlanteans to the Nephilim from the Bible. The Theosophical Society and its core beliefs. Who were the Theosophists? Founded by Helena Blavatsky, Henry Steele Olcott, and William Quayne Judge in New York. Theosophy aimed to unite science, religion, and philosophy under a universal spiritual truth. The society was heavily influenced by Hindu and Buddhist teachings, but also incorporated occultism, ancient myths, and secret knowledge. The 7 root races. Blavatsky introduced a racial theory of human evolution in her books Isis Unveils in 1877 and The Secret Doctrine in 1888. She claimed that humanity evolved through 7 root races, each having distinct spiritual and physical traits. The first root race, Polarian, it's ethereal, non-physical beings, existed in Hyperborea, a mythical northern land. The second root race is Hyperborean. It's a giant, spiritually advanced beings who lived in the Arctic region. The third root race is Lemurian, who lived in the lost continent of Lemuria, physically massive, hermaphroditic beings, later developing into gendered humans. If I'm not mistaken, this is what is referred to as Africans, or like what we are now. The fourth root race, Atlantean, the great civilization of Atlantis, semi-divine, technologically advanced, but corrupted by materialism. Some theosophists later linked Atlanteans to the Nephilim of Genesis 6. Atlanteans interbreed with lower races and fell into degeneration. The fifth root race, Aryan, the modern European and Indo-Iranian peoples. These are descendants of Atlanteans who migrated to India, Persia, and Europe, spiritually superior and meant to guide human evolution. Some later theosophists, especially Nazi occultists, twisted this to justify white supremacy. The sixth root race, which is not yet developed, future race destined to be spiritually enlightened. And then the seventh root race is a final race, fully divine beings, humanity's ultimate evolution into god-like beings. Blavatsky claimed the Aryans were the heirs of the Atlanteans and carried the spiritual knowledge of Atlantis forward. The Atlantis-Nephilim connection. How Atlanteans were linked to the Nephilim. Blavatsky never directly stated the Atlanteans were Nephilim, but later theosophists and French theorists connected the dots. Atlantis was said to have fallen due to corruption and forbidden knowledge. This parallels Genesis 6.4, where Nephilim appeared to appear before the Great Flood due to the actions of the fallen angels. Some claim the gods of Atlantis were actually fallen angels who mated with humans to produce giant offspring, or Nephilim-like beings. Atlanteans were described as giants with advanced knowledge. The Nephilim were often described as mighty men of old, men of renown, Genesis 6:4, which could fit the Atlantean mythos. The flood that destroyed Atlantis mirrors Noah's flood. Theosophists claim that Atlanteans perished in a global catastrophe similar to the biblical Great Flood, which wiped out the Nephilim. Some conspiracy theorists argue that Atlanteans' Nephilim escaped and became the ancestors of modern European elite bloodlines. Interesting. How the Aryan Atlantis myth fueled occult Nazism. Theosophy's influence on Aryan mysticism. Blavatsky's Aryan Atlantis theory was later adopted and distorted by European esoteric circles that promoted Aryan supremacy. Guido von List and the Thule Society. Germany, the early 1900s, claimed Aryans had Atlantean blood and were destined to rule the world. They promoted Nordic Aryan superiority and occult practices tied to race purification. Nazi occultism, SS, and Heinrich Himmler's Ahnenerbe. I don't know if I said that right. The SS believed Aryans descended from divine Atlantean beings, and they searched for Atlantis in Hyperborea, hoping to prove Aryan descent from ancient gods or Nephilim-like beings. Himmler funded occult experiments, eugenics, and expeditions in Tibet, looking for evidence of this Aryan-Atlantic connection. Nephilim as bloodline of the gods. Some Nazi occultists took this further, claiming that Atlanteans were actually fallen angels. Nephilim. This led to ideas that Aryan blood must be purified to preserve divine genetics. They believed non-Aryan peoples lacked Atlantean Nephilim blood, justifying racism and genocide. The modern legacy of Theosophy and Nephilim theories. Theosophy and New Age spirituality. Theosophical ideas still influence modern occultism, New Age teachings, and esoteric spirituality. Books on Atlantis, Nephilim, and ancient aliens often recycle theosophical themes. Ancient alien theories. Graham Hancock, Zecharia Sitchin, and ancient aliens theorists have linked Atlanteans to extraterrestrials. Some believe Nephilim were actually alien genetic experiments, similar to how Theosophy described Atlanteans as advanced beings. Pseudoscience and neo-Nazi mysticism. Some white supremacist groups still push the Aryan Atlantis theory, claiming they have divine ancestry. Far-right esoteric groups mix theosophy, Nazi occultism, and biblical Nephilim narratives to promote racial superiority. Conclusion: a dangerous mix of myth, mythicism, and pseudoscience. The Theosophical Society created an elaborate myth of Atlantean Aryan origins, which was later twisted into racist ideologies. Some fringe theorists and conspiracy groups continue to blend biblical Nephilim, Atlantis, and Aryan supremacy, while Blavatsky's original ideas were not explicitly racist. Later adaptations were used to justify eugenics, white supremacy, and Nazi occultism. And then I asked, so how does this relate to Black people or Africans? And so ChatGPT answered, how Theosophy, Nephilism, and Atlantis myths relate to Black people and Africans. The Theosophical Society, Aryan Atlantis myths, the Nephilim theories have been used in different ways to construct racial hierarchies, often placing Black people and Africans in a lower position in these narratives. Some of these ideas have directly or indirectly influenced racist ideologies, pseudoscience, or even colonial justifications. Below are some key ways these myths have been used to explain, distort, or oppress Black and African identities in occult, esoteric, and pseudoscientific circles. Theosophy's racial evolution theory in Black people. The Theosophical Society, led by Helena Blavatsky, promoted a 7-root race theory, claiming that humanity evolved through stages of spiritual and physical development. And this theory, though mystical, was deeply racialized. Theosophy's Lemurians as Black people. According to Blavatsky's book, The Secret Doctrine, Lemurians, or the third root race, were dark-skinned, primitive, and gigantic. She explicitly identified them with Black people and Indigenous Australians. Lemurians were less evolved than Atlanteans and Aryans, both physically and spiritually. Theosophy viewed Lemurians as an ancient race that was superseded by more advanced root races. Some esoteric circles interpreted this to mean that Black people were a past stage in human evolution, a racist notion that later influenced European colonial thinking. Africans were considered spiritually inferior in Theosophy. The root race Atlanteans were more advanced but mixed with lesser races, leading to their downfall. The fifth root race, or Aryans, which included Europeans, were considered spiritually superior. Some theosophists claim Black and indigenous peoples belong to earlier, less developed root races, and this was later weaponized by racist ideologies, arguing that Africans were less evolved and incapable of self-governance, a belief that helped justify colonialism, slavery, and segregation. Atlantis and its role in African history. The Atlantis myth, as used in Theosophy and later esoteric traditions, often ignored or distorted Africa's role in ancient history. However, different competing theories emerged. The Eurocentric view, Atlantis as the birthplace of the Aryans. Theosophy and later Nazi occultists claimed Atlantis was home to pure Aryan race. Some versions suggested Atlanteans fled to Europe as their land sank, taking divine wisdom with them. This idea excluded Africa from having advanced civilizations, reinforcing white supremacist narratives. The Afrocentric view, Atlantis was in Africa. African scholars and historians reject the Eurocentric Atlantis theory, arguing that Atlantis was actually an African civilization in Egypt, Mali, or Ethiopia, or Nubia. Some Afrocentric researchers believe Atlantis was a metaphor for lost African greatness, stolen or erased by European colonial narratives. This interpretation sees Africa, not Europe, as the birthplace of civilization. Ancient alien theories were Nephilim African gods. Some conspiracy theorists claim African gods and kings were Nephilim descended beings. Figures like the Dogon people's Nomo gods or the Egyptian deities are sometimes linked to extraterrestrial or Nephilim ancestry. And these theories have both positive and negative racial implications depending on how they're framed. Then there's Nephilim and African giants myths in reality. Nephilim are often depicted as giants, and some African cultures have their own giant myths, which have been linked to Nephilim theory. Okay, and then there's a biblical interpretation where were Nephilim in Africa? I don't know. Some Nephilim spread to Africa after the flood. Biblical figures like Cush, the ancestor of Ethiopians, and Nimrod, a mighty warrior, are sometimes connected to Nephilim bloodlines. African giants, legends, and Nephilim parallels. Many African tribes have legends of giants who once ruled the land. The Zulu mythology describes giant beings who walk the earth. The Dogon people of Mali speak of the Nomo, semi-divine beings who descended from the sky. The Ethiopian and Namibian kings, some were described as giants or semi-divine rulers, similar to Nephilim legends. Some researchers claim these legends are proof that Africa had Nephilim-like beings, but mainstream historians argue they are just myths, not evidence of supernatural origins. Then there's the white supremacist distortions of Nephilim in Africa. Oh, I've heard of this. Okay, so the curse of Ham theory. It's a false biblical justification for racism. This is huge, actually, in the Mormon community, because I actually learned about this there. In Genesis 9:20 to 27, Noah curses Canaan, the son of Ham, after an incident in which Ham saw his father's nakedness, and some racist theologians twisted this passage to claim Africans were the cursed descendants of Ham, justifying slavery. While this idea has no biblical basis, it was used for centuries to oppress Black people. Wow. Some fringe groups today connect Ham's lineage to Nephilim, suggesting that certain races are tainted with fallen angel blood. Nazi esotericism and the denial of African civilization. Nazi occultists ignored Africa's role in history because they did not fit their Aryan Atlantis myth. The Anunnaki, or Nazi occult division, searched for Nephilim Atlantis origins in Tibet and Europe, but refused to acknowledge Africa as a source of knowledge. They claimed Egyptian civilization was built by Aryans rather than Africans, an idea later used in Eurocentric Egyptology. I'm sorry, that's funny. Afrocentric responses to theosophy and Nephilism myths. African spiritual traditions and lost knowledge. Many Afrocentric scholars reclaim ancient African spirituality as the true source of wisdom. Some argue that Egypt, Nubia, and Mali had divine or extraterrestrial knowledge long before Europe. Theosophy's whitewashing of Atlantis is seen as an attempt to erase Africa's influence. Black Hebrew Israelite movement and Nephilim's belief. Somehow Hebrew Israelite groups argue that Black people are the true descendants of the biblical figures, not Europeans. Some claim that Europeans, not Africans, carry Nephilim DNA, reversing racist narratives. So, how do these myths continue to shape racial narratives? Theosophy reinforced racist hierarchies by ranking Africans as less evolved races. Eurocentric Atlantis myths denied African civilizations their place in history. Nephilim theories have been used to both uplift and oppress African identity, and Afrocentric scholars challenge these myths. Reclaiming Africa's lost history. Here's what I kind of think and everything I kind of took from that. I do think that there are some people, like, I feel like Elon Musk might be actually one of these people who believe in, like, Atlantism, or this idea of the Nephilim descending from the people of Atlantis or the fallen angels and that specific group. And so they see themselves as descending from people who are more evolved than the humans who are there, and we'll call those the Lemrods. And I think in that woman, Blavatsky, she had the ranking of humans, and the third level was like basically what are the Africans now who are still on Earth now and are the humans now. So I feel like kind of what she's describing is like the world now, and her big idea is that like the Europeans are descended from these fallen angels who are from like somewhere else, but she's also kind of acknowledging the people of now. So I kind of actually feel like in this case, the Afrocentrists and the European Nazis are saying the exact same thing, that maybe they did descend from fallen angels or somewhere else. I won't say, but they acknowledge that like there is a human population of now who is here, and that like what God said in the Bible is that those people have 120 years to live. So just me as a like pragmatist, not even really a Christian, but I will say of all the history that I've seen in the real world, yes, humans have about 120 years to live on Earth now, right? And you can live a pretty decent life. We have an example of, I'll actually put that link in the description box, but there's the Black woman right now. She's about 120. Okay, so she's on her way out, but I mean, this plays out actually extremely accurately. She lived a full life to be 120, and then now she's gonna die. But like, I mean, she didn't do anything really revolutionary in her life. Instead, she simply lived out her life and then she moved on. What I see right now on the internet specifically is quite a lot of people who are striving to be extraordinary. They're like, I'm so great, I've done all these things, I'm not normal, like I'm the shit, I'm so great. And you know what? I don't know. Like, I don't really have any pushback to that. If that's what those people believe they are, I'm not going to sit here and tell them that they're not. They can be whatever they want to be, right? But what I will say is that, how can I put this? I am just coming here specifically talking to like Black girls, like African girls, like we are like human right now. Like I mean personally, like I don't have an ambition to be like more than human, or I simply have an ambition to like live out my human life and like have that be the thing. But at the same time, here's the thing with technology, and if you've made it this far in the video, take this with you. What really separates civilizations is their ability to utilize technology. You have a cell phone right now, like you're using it to watch this video. How much information from the real world, from like other people that you see either on the internet in real life, that you read about in articles, are you utilizing to improve your own life? Because there's so much information coming at you. If you're using none of it and you're just like passively going through your shit, it kind of depends. Now, if you're in like Silicon Valley and you've like figured out a way to make $100,000 a year as an influencer, I mean, if you kind of just follow this channel for a while, I'm easily gonna like hit those numbers like kind of soon. We'll talk about the recent like Blundstone prop up, but we'll save that for another video. Anyway, where was I going with this? Yeah, so you figured out a way to like monetize, okay, and like make money in this society. Then you can simply use some of that money, buy yourself a very secure apartment building, have your 3 meals a day, and get like 9 hours of sleep, exercise for 30 minutes every day. You're gonna hit 110 years and go to the doctor. Are you fucking kidding? Yeah, you're gonna hit 110 years of your life like easy. If you just don't do anything and just do that every year and keep if you're able to like that's the cool thing about actually being a content creator. If you're like true to your story, there's going to be an audience at every age. Everybody's got a cell phone, so you can just get on and talk about the shit happening in your real life if you wanted to. And if you actually just did that, you will find an audience who is who's going to relate to you at the stage that you're at, and you could monetize from that. And I feel like that's the part that this like Atlantis crew is missing or whatever. I think they're trying so hard to, like, if you're in the future, then I don't need to know about you, right? Like you can go be, and the whole thing about the fallen angels and why I kind of wanted to kind of explore what that girl was saying in the first place is because she's saying like there were this population of people. They weren't even people, actually. They weren't human. They were something else. They were like fallen angels. So that means that there were other angels. We don't know what those angels look like or whatever, but the ones that fell did something wrong. That's why they fell. One, like, I grew up Buddhist, and a main lesson from Buddhism is like reincarnation and karma. Those are two themes, but bigger themes are like the way that you live your life now is going to determine how you are reincarnated. So like if you're living an awful life as a human right now, you might be reincarnated in a lower form. So you might come as like an ant or a roach or something, a mouse, a rat. Yet if you are like if your karma is accumulating in this life, you're doing so much good, you know, in the world, you might be reincarnated as a god, as a princess or something. I don't know, something beyond humanity that we don't have a name for yet. But karma is the central theme that is determining where you're going to land on that spectrum. That's a central theme of the Buddhism that I grew up with. I thought it was very interesting that in this case, the Aryans were they were basically using religion to almost like dictate who the intellectual capacity of certain people. Some things kind of stick. I do feel like I see like undereducated lower class Blacks being kind of stuck to a Bible that they don't necessarily understand nor implement, which is why I would definitely highly encourage you to stay far away from Christianity and primarily Black communities. I've said that once, I will say it a million times. I don't know, I haven't explored this for myself, but I feel like if I were go back to the States, I would probably live somewhere like Utah and kind of just understand kind of the Mormon community of influencers there. I do think that there's something worth unpacking, right? In that community of women who understand the value of documenting their lived experience. I think there's some value. There's something almost understated in that. Anyway, yeah, a very long video, but hope you enjoyed that.